All right, so let's get started. Because we have a full house already. Okay, so today we have the pleasure of having Lídia Farré. Lídia got her PhD at the European Institute in Firenze, and after that she's had all appointments at the University of Alicante, IAE, University of Barcelona, and today she's going to talk about parental leave and child decisions, which is and child development as what is in her agenda on labor, economics, and also development. Okay, so thank you very much, Lídia. The floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and with all these faces that are very familiar. So first thing, that's very preliminary work in progress, so comments are very welcome, okay? This is joint work with Libertad González at UPF, Claudia Hupka at CUNEF, and Jennifer Valenzuela also at the UPF, okay? And so what we are doing in this paper is basically to examine the impacts of paternity leave extensions on child development. Okay, so and we are gonna so we go to the Spanish case. Okay, so as you know, I'm gonna be talking about that, but this policy, this paternity leave permit, has been recently extended. In less than 5 years, we have suffered these dramatic extensions. Okay, and the paternity leave permit has been equalized to that of the mother, and this is very unique all over the globe, all over the place, right, to have this equalization. I'm going to be talking about it later on, but okay, so despite having this policy, we don't know much about the impacts of this policy on child development, okay? So I'm going to start. The motivation for this paper is that, as you know, human capital has large individual and social economic returns, okay? And key to human capital development are early life investments, okay? And here we are citing the work by Heckman and co-authors. But yeah, so the point is that what's happening at the very early stages seems to be crucial for future developments, okay? So at these very early stages, parents play a very important role in child development, not only through the genetic endowment, okay, but also through the choices, right, about the child environment, and in particular about the type of investments they make on their children, okay? So at these very early stages, okay, there are two very important investments, okay? So the first one, I mean, it's not an order, right, but basically we can think of money, and also very important, we can think of time, okay? Not only quantity, but also the quality of this type are gonna be important, okay? Also, public policies may affect these parental investment decisions, okay? So cash transfers maybe is a popular policy that may affect the money investment decisions more directly. Subsidized childcare may also have implications, okay, on the quality of care your children are gonna receive, right? So if the price of child or formal childcare goes down, right? So you may decide to enroll your kid in childcare and so on, right? And also parental leave permits are policies that affect these parental decisions, okay? Because, so the idea is that the introduction or the extension of parental leave permits potentially increases the amount of parental time available during early childhood, right? So it's like an additional time endowment that this policy provides, okay? So we need to understand this policy in this particular setting. I'm gonna talk today, given that the policy, the permit is fully paid, right? So it's additional time that the policy, or the goal of the policy is to provide additional time to the family or to the kid, okay? So what do we know about the impact of parental leave permits on child development? Okay, so the effect of maternity leave permits have been extensively, I would say that, yeah, extensively well studied, okay? And so the main takeaway of these studies is that short maternal leave programs, right, so the magic number is around 16 weeks, improve the health and the schooling achievement of children. It also has a positive effect, they also have a positive effect on maternal labor supply. But generous leave programs, okay, so more than a year, do not seem to benefit neither the kid nor the mom. Okay, so this idea that short maternity leave permits is the ideal or the optimal policy, it's the takeaway from all this literature. Okay. However, many countries have introduced paid paternity leave in the last 20 years, okay? And we don't know much about this policy, okay? So we know that it's an effective policy to increase the take-up rate of parental leave by fathers, okay? So where the policy, so that's clear all over the place in all the countries, so Canada, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, okay? So it has a direct impact on the take-up. And some authors have reported that it also increases men's involvement in childcare, okay? Not in all the papers, right? But in a few of them, there is evidence that the policy is effective in increasing fathers' involvement in childcare, okay? And also important is that this type of paternity leave permit do not have a strong impact, or I would say that, so the general conclusion among all the papers that have analyzed the paternity leave permit is that the impacts in the labor market are quite limited. Okay, so it's effective in terms of getting men more involved in childcare without having a huge or having a limited impact on the labor market. Okay, but which are the effects on children? Which are the effects on children? Okay, so who are the object of the policy, okay? So the effect of father's time on child development is gonna crucially depend on the quality of the counterfactual mode of care that is being replaced, okay? So this father's time is something new, okay? And obviously if the kid stays...
Lydia?
Yes?
Sorry, can you go back one slide? Yeah, so I mean, here when you say in the second bullet point, no, so when you say ones don't have effects, or they have small, I suppose that means compared to the shorter ones, like the shorter ones have an effect and the longer ones don't have an effect beyond the short ones.
Exactly, yeah, exactly, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
So extended.
Okay.
Yeah, here it should be like extended maternity leave permits do not have additional positive effects. Exactly. And they may have negative effects on mothers' promotions. I don't know where is the microphone or if you can hear me.
He can hear me.
So I don't need to shout.
No,
okay.
no.
Okay, thank you.
I can hear you, I can follow. Yeah, I can follow.
Okay, thank you. So more questions? Okay, so I was making this point that so this policy, the paternity leave permit, is additional time. Okay, so the kid stays in, potentially can stay with the father instead of being in alternative modes of care, such as being with the mother, being in formal care, or being in informal care, nannies, grandparents, and so on, right? So the key point is that if there is substitution, and which type of substitution is going on.
Well, actually, I do have a question. In the studies for maternal leave for mothers, do we know what is the channel for the positive effects on children? Is it because of the time they spend with them, or it is? I think that there are some studies also talking about breastfeeding, no? For example, or what is the channel through which maternal?
Good question. About the breastfeeding, I mean, I know only of one study, right, documenting the positive effects of breastfeeding in economic terms, right, using this, using whether you are born in a weekend or not, right, and exploiting this variation, and there are positive effects, right. So from this, I mean, I think that what they compare is that staying with the mother versus alternative forms of care, and basically here we are saying going to formal childcare, right? But I mean, we know that formal childcare is not detrimental, okay? But I don't know exactly, and that's a good question. I don't know exactly what's the reason why, whether there is a biological question or whether, I mean, and I think that these authors in particular make the point that staying with the mother more than 1 year, it's not beneficial because there are income effects, right? So there are particular negative for mothers, for maternal employment, right? And through that there may be an income effect, okay? But yeah, this should be, yeah. Okay, so what do we know so far about the effects of the paternity leave permit, okay? So there are only 2 papers that analyze this question, and they look at later life outcomes, in the sense that this first paper for Sweden looks at the effect of paternity leave extensions on the school leaving rate, okay? And what they find is that 1 month of paternity leave, 1 extra month, 1 month of paternity leave exclusively reserved to fathers has a negative effect on school leaving rates for sex, okay? And the reason in this paper, that's a very recent paper, and I mean, I read it and I'm not still convinced, but it's true that in a previous paper, this same author showed that the paternity leave increases divorce, okay? Because fathers are, because parents are more time together and conflict increases, okay? So their story here to justify the negative effects, okay, is that there's more divorce, and then divorced non-college educated mothers are better, so then kids are less with the fathers because of divorce, and less educated mothers are less able to handle the situation, right? For whatever reason. And what they make the point that it's not that divorce has a direct impact on the emotional situation of kids, because they show this heterogeneity where the effects are stronger for non-educated fathers, okay? And then there is this other paper for, so this is Sweden, this is Norway, okay, where they do find a positive effect coming from highly educated fathers who spend more time with the kids, right? And here there is a clear substitutional channel, right? So in families, so the effects, the positive effects, okay, on school performance at the age of 16 comes from families where the father has a higher level of education than the mother, and because of the paternity leave, the father spends more time with the kid, this has a positive effect, right? So that's the story that comes to your mind, okay, when you find a positive effect and all these things, right? But yeah, there is quite a lot of heterogeneity, and now you're gonna see my results. So what we do, okay? So first of all, we study the impact of paternity leave extensions in Spain on the very early stages, okay? So we focus on kids who are 0 to 5 years old, okay? So that's very, very early, differently from previous studies who looked at age 16. And so we explored 5 extensions that took place in Spain between 2017 and 2022, okay? So the paternity leave permit was first introduced in Spain in 2007, okay? And this introduction represented 2 weeks of paternity leave, Okay, so the law stayed like that until 2017, so only these 2 weeks of leave, and then progressively it has been extended until 2021, when the paternity leave has been equalized in duration to that of the mother. Okay, so all these extensions are fully paid, both for the mother and for the father. Okay. So we have these reforms that it's the variation we are exploiting for identification, and also we collected our own data. Okay, so we surveyed a firm surveyed 5,000 households using a questionnaire that was a combination of, first it included the ages and stages questionnaire. Okay, that's a validated instrument to measure or to capture different dimensions of child development, from motor development to communication, social skills, and so on. That's a very well validated question used in the literature, okay? And this firm programmed the ages and stages questionnaire for the Spanish case and adapted it. And also we designed part of the survey to include questions to capture mechanisms, right? Basically, so how parents were splitting the leave, how were they behaving during the leave, and so on, right? So we designed part of the questionnaire to complement the ages and stages and to exploit potential mechanisms. Okay.
Lydia, sorry, before you go, just a clarification on the leave. So now men in Spain can take up to 16 weeks of paternity leave. That's across all sectors and occupations. And
let me show. Okay, no.
And this is at the same time as the mother, or in different times? Tell us a little bit more about the details.
Okay, so I'm gonna do that later, but I can do it now. But let me show you the graph.
Okay, so then I'll let you go.
No, that's the law. Okay, so we are here. From January 2021, there is this 16 weeks of paternity leave. Okay, the 6 first weeks are compulsory, okay, for the mother and the father, okay, and they need to be together. Okay, so they are compulsory just after birth. Okay, and then they can decide whether they want to spend the other 10 weeks together or they want to do it sequentially. Okay? So we have administrative data to analyze the timing of the paternity leave, but we didn't have the time yet to explore this administrative data. Okay? But anecdotal evidence, but also there was a report in El Periódico the other day pointing to the number of that 73% of the families shared the leave. Okay? So they didn't take the leave sequentially, but they spent the 16 weeks together. And that's also what we find with our survey data. Okay? So that's how it works. 6 weeks are compulsory, and then they can decide. And actually, what they were arguing in this newspaper is that it's administratively very difficult to first take the 6 weeks, then go back to work, and then apply again for the other 10 weeks. Okay, and this is the main reason. So the administrative barrier seems to be an important reason to understand why fathers are taking, or why parents are taking the leave together. Okay, but I'm going to provide you numbers about it. Okay, so we use an RDD, okay, I'm gonna give you more details about the identification strategy exploiting these reforms, okay? So let me briefly summarize what we find, okay? So we show that these extensions, lead to longer effective leave taking by fathers after childbirth, and we observe that both in our administrative data, but also with the data we collect, okay, from the survey. And this is especially important for the most 2 recent reforms, okay? So the 2020, which extended the length of the paternity leave from 8 to 12 weeks, and the 2021, which equalized the length of the paternity leave to that of the mother, right? So going from 12 to 16 weeks, okay? we do not find positive effects on child development of these extensions, okay? And if any, we find evidence of some negative effects at the left tail of the distribution, right? So, basically, it increases the probability of severe development problems, okay? And I'm gonna tell you later on what this is, okay? We explore potential mechanisms, okay? So what can be behind these negative effects, okay? And here it has a lot to do with the quality of the counterfactual type of care, right? So it seems that mothers are taking some time off, right? And then father's time and mother's time may not be perfect substitute very early in life. It also seems that these kids affected by the reform are less likely to go to childcare, right? And we know that childcare is good for child development for the majority of the distribution, okay? In particular, for those coming from less advantaged backgrounds, right? And the third explanation that I think we also should push, and you tell me at the end, is that there is a learning mechanism, right? So those fathers are the first generation that are really taking care of their kids, right? So either alone or with the mother, right? But are 16 weeks at home, right? With the same duties and responsibilities that the mother, right? And in here, there's a learning mechanism. And we saw that also when mothers, so this, I'm going to be talking about that, but so when mothers started working back in the 50s and the 60s, there was also the concern that having a working mother was bad for the kid, right? So after that, we learned that having a working mother is not bad for the kid, right? So having a caring father may not be bad, or it's not going to be bad for the kid after men acquire these parenting skills, right? So that's a little bit of the story in this paper. Yeah. So I already told you about that. So the maternity leave since the very beginning is 6 weeks compulsory and 10 weeks that could be shared. Okay. This was until 2007, right? These 10 weeks these 10 weeks could always be shared, okay, or at least until very recently, but it was mostly mothers who took it, right? So there were less than 1% of families who actually share this parental leave that could potentially be shared, okay? So mothers use these 16 weeks, and then we have these 4 extensions since 2000, these 5 extensions since 2007. Okay, that extended the paternity leave from 4 weeks to 16 weeks. Okay, so in a previous paper with Libertad, we studied the impact of the introduction of the paternity leave permit. Okay, so what happened when, for the first time, men were allowed or had the right to stay with their kids 13 days or 15 days after the birth. Okay. And what we find in here is that, so a strong effect in the take-up, so men were using this entitled paternity leave, okay? And we also report some positive effects of fathers' involvement in childcare and housework, and we also observe, actually, not really a decrease, what we observe is a delay in subsequent fertility, right? So it took longer to have the next kid for eligible families, okay? So, and basically our story there is that now it's more costly for the man to have a kid, and because he also has to apply for a leave, and the same thing we've seen in women 50 or 30 years ago, we are seeing a similar pattern on men now, okay? So here is basically the reforms, okay? So in 2007, we see these 2 weeks. The paternity leave permit has been like that until 2016. Then we jump to 4 weeks in 2017, 5 weeks 2018, 8 weeks 2019, 12 weeks 2020, and 16 weeks 2021. Okay, the most recent one. Okay?
Sorry, Lydia, quick question.
Yeah.
So in the previous graph, so what I understand the policy is basically mothers can take up to 16 during all the period.
Yeah.
6 weeks is compulsory, and then for fathers, everything is voluntary, and it increases, let's say, availability or the length of the period they can take increases over time.
Yeah.
And just to understand, the salary effects of this are basically none because somehow the Social Security pays for the income of whoever is taking the leave.
Yes, exactly. It's fully paid. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But for fathers, is it?
It's compulsory only in the recent one. So for fathers it's compulsory. So for the mothers, the 6 weeks of maternity leave have always been compulsory. Okay. For the fathers, it's only in this more recent reform that they have to be at home 6 weeks compulsory. 6 weeks after the birth.
And then the 10.
And then the 10th, they can decide whether they want to take it part-time, whether they want to take them simultaneously with the mother or after the maternity leave
But they're also compulsory, the 10 weeks?
No. But they are not transferable. That's very important, right? Because if they were transferable, then what I think we could be observing, given the experiences in other countries and what we saw before, is that mothers would be the ones taking the leave, okay? Which is not a very good idea in terms of female labor supply or gender equality, I think in terms of labor market outcomes, okay?
But from the 6 week, then the mother can go back to work.
Yeah.
So it's not mandatory.
To stay at home. No.
So it's both for both of them. It's
for both of them,
6 weeks.
It's exactly, and then they can do whatever they want with these 10 weeks, but transferring from one father to the other. So these 10 weeks are for the mother has 10 weeks that are not compulsory, and the father has 10 weeks that are not compulsory.
So that's, and before that, it actually was not mandatory.
For the mother, nothing changed. No, the 6 weeks were also mandatory. Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah,
so
the
for
thing
the mother
that was
has not changed anything except that she can decide to go back to work, knowing that the father may stay home.
Would be exactly.
So it changed the
possibility
also changed.
I mean, that's something we need to explore what's going on, right? So what the data tell us is that they are spending more time of the parental leave together, which means that they stay at home after birth. And then they put the kid with either the grandparents or nannies or informal care.
So have you noticed, or have you recorded some sort of change in the mother behavior?
No. With our survey data, no. We need to look at admin data.
So because the average number of weeks before
stays the same. Yeah. For the mothers.
No, the actual number of weeks that the mother used to take on leave
has not changed.
Has not changed.
No. And also, I mean, that's the law. From the law, has not changed. And in our data, in our survey data, we don't find effects on mothers' behaviors in terms of how to use the maternity leave.
Okay. Well, that is a result, correct?
Yeah.
Because that seems to point that the task that the mother used to do has not changed.
So maybe now she has more time to have a nap, go to play paddle.
But
I don't know.
That may change. No, that may change the effects on the future labor market results for the mother, but not for the child, because the dad is just taking over some task that used to be done.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of also
So the effects that you could find are not on the child, but on the parents.
No, we do find something on the child, on the kids, right? We do find something I'm gonna show on the kids, and then for the mother, nothing is, I mean, we are gonna see that they are happier, for instance, okay? Maybe they are more relaxed, okay? And the fact that they are not affecting how they take the leave, it's also consistent with not finding an effect on labor market outcomes. We haven't explored the labor market effects in the Spanish case. We haven't explored. So we haven't explored the labor market effects of the model. Okay? What we know is that we find some evidence of negative effects on kids.
When you say kids, you're specifically talking about the child
of this, yeah.
Not the rest of the families.
No, no. The ones affected by the reform. The ones that because they were born.
No, but she means born after the reform.
Another possibility would be to see what happens to the rest of the kids.
To the rest of the family. Yeah, to the siblings, yeah. Okay. So how much time do I have? Still like 20 minutes or no? Less?
Yeah, 20 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
So let me talk a little bit about the data, okay? So we conducted this online survey, okay, in February 2020, collecting information about take-up length of paternity and maternity leave, okay? So here I'm gonna be answering some of your questions. And also this detailed questionnaire on child development, based on the ages and stages questionnaire, okay? So as I said, that's a very, this has been validated as a screening tool and is designed to identify developmental progress in children between the age of 1 month and 6 years, and it's the father who answers the questionnaire based on the behavior of the kid, okay? So there are 21 different questionnaires depending on the age of the kid. Okay, so they are adapted. The age and state, the ISQ is adapted to the age of the kid, and then they can be normalized to construct this indicator of several severe developmental problems. Okay, so for each, so they take into account that stages of development are different at different ages, but they have a way, okay, to construct a score and then create an indicator that can be used at any age between 0 and 6, okay? So each questionnaire has 30 questions that include 5 big developmental areas: communication, gross motor, fine motor, problem solving, and personal or social. And then for each area, there is a cutoff value, okay, so we construct a score, okay, out of the questions in each of these areas, okay, and from this score, we can mark whether the kid is above or below the monitoring zone, okay? So being below the monitoring zone means that, below the monitoring zone threshold means that the child needs to practice more their abilities in their area, but it's not that bad. What it's worrying is being in the referral zone, okay, at the left tail of the distribution. Okay, this means that the child may need a more detailed evaluation by a professional, as he or she may suffer developmental delays in a particular area.
The cutoff changes according to the, it's constant or changes?
It's adapted to the age of the kid.
No, but I mean, during the, as years pass by, the cutoff changes or it remains constant?
I think it's not constant. Because the questions, it should be constant, right? But they are comparable in terms of development. So this cutoff means the same whether you are 6 months or whether you are 2 years, right? They are measuring the same thing.
No, I mean, for a kid born in 2015, it's the same cutoff for a kid born in 2020?
I think so. I think that the cutoff is not, it's not, it doesn't have a time dimension. Or at least for the period we are, for this ages and stages questionnaire didn't have a time dimension.
You may have a COVID effect also, no? Because in the period that they were at home, and actually they were with the father probably for some months, no? Even before the reform, no?
When I talk about the results, but we are talking about kids born 4 months before, 4 months after 2020, right? So these kids, I mean, it's true that the ones born after were born, I mean, they were in COVID, but these are only 4 months older. So there's not, a big, part of our effects may be driven by COVID, but I think that the kids are not that different, or the situation, these kids that are at the end in our more demanding specification, we are comparing kids born in December, October, November, December 2019 with kids born in January, February, March 2020.
No, but I mean, the ones that they were born in 19, they also have parents at home probably for some time because of the COVID mandatory at home, no? Like because they were closed for months.
Well, because schools were closed, but
even if they
two
were
of
not
them,
subject to the reform.
yeah.
Right?
So what I'm saying is that eligible and non-eligible kids were both at home.
Yeah, we're both at home. Yeah,
We're both at home. So the differential effect that we identify cannot be something common to these both cohorts. It has to be something in addition of the COVID thing, because otherwise we wouldn't identify this jump in the data. Okay? So, okay, here is a survey, a sample of the questionnaire. That's for 16 months. Does your child point to path or try to pick a picture in a book? Okay, so standard questions to measure several areas of development. Okay, so here is our sample. We have these 5,000 observations, 50% of them female. On average, our kids have around 37 months. The ISQ score is normalized, standardized to have mean 0, standard deviation 1. And then, for instance, that's 71% of the kids in our sample are not in the referral zone, right? So 29% of them would have an indication of severe developmental problems in some of the areas, okay? Or at least one. So what's our identification strategy? So we are comparing children in our sample who were exposed to different lengths of the paternity leave, right? And we have these 5 extensions, and we follow an RDD, comparing kids born just before to those born just after the introduction of each reform, right? So here is the standard RDD, where the dependent variable is our measure of interest, that it's gonna be the length of the parental leave or the measure of child development. A constant, here we have an indicator for whether you are born after the extension, okay? Here we have the running variable, that so far it's a linear function of the month of birth, and then we have the interaction between this linear, the running variable, and an indicator to allow for a different slope after the threshold.
Sorry, Lydia, but the extension starts in 2017, right? If I remember okay?
Yeah.
And you only have, you only take 2016 as the control?
Well, what we do is for each reform, we compare the year before and the year after, because we have these 5 extensions, right? So what we do is 26, 27, 27, 28, 28, 29, 29, 20. Okay, so we run a separate regression for each reform.
For each station, yeah.
Okay? And, okay, yeah, exactly. So this is not a diff in diff, Susanna, that's an RDD. So what we exploit is the discontinuity
sure.
in the...
Yeah, but you do it at chunks.
Yeah.
Not with all that.
No. We do it reform by reform.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so to answer the first question on the take-up, so we have administrative data, and I'm only gonna show you a graph of the administrative data, and then we use our data, the data from the survey, to go into the details or to conduct a microeconometric analysis of what's going on with the use of paternity leave, and also to explore potential crowding out effects, right? So now maybe fathers, or before they were using vacations and now they are using paternity leave, right? So to really see that these policies have an effect on the effective time that fathers are not working or are on leave, okay? So that's the aggregate data, right? So we see the different reforms that modify the length of the paternity leave, and we see that it increases also in the administrative data, the average duration. So here we have conditional on the take-up, so the zeros are not here, right? So those who were non-eligible or didn't want to take the paternity leave are not here, okay? So the paternity leave was not compulsory until 2021, okay? And here we see this decline because at the time we got the data, so some fathers didn't spend the whole paternity leave yet, right? So we got the data by, exactly 2021. So now we need to update this piece in here, right, to see the line. That's what we see with our survey data, right? So a similar pattern, so increasing the duration of the paternity leave. And here we have the zeros, because actually in the survey we asked whether you took the leave or not.
But still, you base your analysis only on those who take the. But do you test at least if the characteristics of those using administrative data who take the paternity leave are similar to the ones, because otherwise?
With the admin data so far, we cannot do much, right? Because we only know whether the duration, I think that we know the date of birth of the kid and the duration of the leave. We don't know, and the gender of the father, right? So we don't know anything about education. Maybe we know province of residence, but we don't know the socioeconomic characteristics, right? For the administrative data, we could do some, and actually I think we need to do some analysis to see who is taking or to analyze not only the extensive margin, but also the intensive margin. So a more rigorous first stage result, right? But that actually, we do that, but I'm not gonna display the coefficients, because here we have X's, right? So I'm not gonna be showing you, and I couldn't remember which are the coefficients of, for instance, parental education, or age of the father, right? So that's the type of thing you would like to see, no? The coefficients on these X's. Okay, yeah, so I think that we need to display them, yeah. Okay. Okay, so here the effects of the reforms on the duration, on the length of paternity leave, right? So the number of weeks that fathers are on, that's data from our survey, okay? So that's the number of weeks that fathers declare to be on leave in our survey. Okay, so for the 2020 reform, we see that on average the duration increases by 2.2 weeks, right? So depending on the specification, here we use the maximum window where we are analyzing all kids, those born in 2019 and 2020, and here we are narrowing our comparison window, and here we are very restrictive, and still the effects are statistically significant despite the substantial decline in the sample size. Okay, so when we look at the most recent reform, we still see this effect of an increase on the length of paternity leave, right? So there is a first stage. I must say that there is only a first stage for these two last reforms. For the previous reforms, we don't find statistics. Well, I mean, that's the graphical thing of the RDD, right? Where you see this jump in the duration between those born before the introduction of the reform or before the extension and after the extension, right? Both for the reform in 2021 and the reform in 2020, right? And also, as I was saying, we only have a first stage, okay? So we only find an effect on the length of paternity leave that is statistically significant for for the 2020 and 2021 reform, right? For the previous ones, the effects are not statistically significant, right? So we are gonna focus on exploring the effect of these two reforms for the two most recent reforms because those are the reforms for which we have a first stage, right? So that indeed parents are changing behavior. Okay, we don't have evidence that, or economic or statistically significant evidence that parents are changing behavior in the earlier reform. Okay. So what else? So that's what I showed you before, right? So that's the effect on total time off after birth. Okay. No, that's something else, right? So what I showed you before is that weeks on paternity leave. Okay, this is paternity leave plus vacations. Okay, and the results are very similar. So doesn't seem to be a crowding out effect, right? So they are not less in vacations because now they are more in paternity leave, right? So it really seems that time, parental time at home is increasing, or at least parental time, or the time that parents declare to be on leave increases, okay? And we also see that it increases the time of the leave that they are spending with the mother, right? So this is evidence that they are not taking the leave sequentially, but that they are taking the leave simultaneously, okay? Because these numbers are very similar, okay? So the total increase in the number of weeks is an increase of time the parents spend together, okay? What about the mother, okay? So we don't see an increase in the duration of maternity leave, right? So this seems that these 16 weeks stay the same, okay? We also don't see, and we find an effect, an increase on the number of weeks that mothers spend with the fathers, okay? So that's another way to look at this possibility that is that parents are spending more time together during the parental leave, right? So that they are not taking the leave simultaneously.
Yes, sorry, just a minor point. Why is the sample size different for column 3 compared to the other two?
Because, so here,
Yeah, for length of leave alone, why is the sample size different from the others?
from this, right?
Yeah.
Good question. So, I mean, we have been discussing that, and we need to put these numbers. I mean, probably in the final version, these numbers are going to still be different, right? But the idea is that, so how was the explanation? Oh, I mean, it's about the reporting, right? So I'm asking how many weeks you stayed on leave, and only.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, but this is, we are aware of that, and we need an explanation for the number of observations in the different samples. Yeah.
Yeah, but not only this, I think that also you should, at least as a regular check, to make sure that if you do the same regressions with the minimum number of observations, you are going to have the same.
Okay, yeah, so to select our sample,
And the smallest one, and to make sure that if you run the same regressions with the other, because sometimes 200 observations
make a difference. I mean, there is an explanation for the.
No, but sure, but still, if there is an explanation,
If there is an explanation,
you have to make sure that you have
okay, yeah, I'm trying to think, but I'm not gonna remember. So.
I have questions or just suggestions, because the aim is to check if extension of parental leave enhances the development of the children, right? So probably it's, even though 70% of parents took the leave together, so probably it's worth to study what happens with the 70% and the 30. Of course, you have to control for the unbalanced sets, but it's interesting because the difference is that children who are cared by fathers or parents in general, so they receive, in addition to care, they receive love, yes, allegedly, yeah. So that's the difference between a parent and a nanny. So they receive care and love versus just care, usually, yeah.
Well, it could, I mean,
Yeah.
depends.
Well, no, but allegedly, yes, allegedly,
Ideally.
yeah, I don't know, yes, but probably you love your kid, yes, probably, yes. But probably that's the difference, yes. So, so that means that when the kid is so young, probably having both at home is just overcrowding and just doing nothing around the kid, yes. And of course, we are assuming that the father do something. Yes? We are assuming that. Yes, and that's a strong assumption. Yeah. So, but probably it enhances if you have the kid with the mother 16 weeks and then the father 16 weeks, yes, because they have 32 weeks, yes, so it's more than half a year.
Definitely,
So
I agree that.
but of course you have to make times pass because you have some recent data, no?
Yeah, no, but of course this is, that's gonna be a very, I mean, that's one of the points, we have a to-do list and this heterogeneity analysis is there, as well as resolving this issue of the observations, okay? So in our survey data, only that's the summary of the take-up, okay? So in our survey data, only the last 2 extensions had a significant impact, and basically the takeaway is that paternity leave increased, or the time that fathers were on leave increased by 2 to 3.5 weeks, and it seems that they are taking more time together, okay? And we don't find any effect on mother's time, okay? What about the kids? Okay, so we have this, so we measure child development in 5 areas using these 2 cutoffs, right? So being below the referral zone or being below the monitoring zone, okay? And remember that the referral zone is the very bad area, the very left tail of the distribution, okay? So, first outcome, okay? So we estimate a model for the probability of being in the normal development, okay? This means above the monitoring zone, okay? So showing no indication of developmental problems in any area, and here the results are not statistically significant for none of the reforms, okay? So on average, okay, having the father at home doesn't hurt or doesn't have a beneficial effect, okay? So nothing. But when we look at the probability of being outside the referral zone, okay, and here is where an indicator of severe development problems, okay, so that's the left tail of the distribution. Here we do see that the 2020 reform has negative and quite economically significant effects, right? So the probability of being in this referral zone increases by about 15 percentage points for the first reform, okay? For the second reform, for the most recent, the 2021, the effects are not statistically significant, okay? So here is when we look at different windows, right? So this is the most generous window where we have more kids, and here is more restrictive, okay? And then we also, so here you see the graphical effect of the RBD, okay? So we see this negative effect on the probability of being outside the referral zone. So we see this jump, so graphically, so that's, actually I should first show the graph and then show the tables, right? So I should invert the order maybe. And so we also look at the 5 areas, the indicators of the 5 areas separately, okay? So the probability of being outside the referral zone in each of these areas, the effects are negative for the 2020 reform, okay? And the effects are less negative, or I mean, we do have some negative effects, but we also have this positive effect in problem solving for the most recent reform, right? So for the first reform, clearly negative effects. For the second, for the most recent, the effects seem less severe. Okay?
But this is very strange, you know, because if you have from, I don't know, 8 to 12, right? Was it? Yeah, 8 to 12 you have negative effects. If you have more, these negative effects seem to disappear in the previous table. And now the effects which are significant 1% in 2021 are not significant in the previous one, and the opposite happens, so it's a bit strange.
Well, here I have a story about learning, right?
Yeah, but I mean, maybe the samples are very different in the 2 years.
We have a balanced incovariance test, okay, and they look the same, right? At least for the 2 samples, at least for the within each reform, right? The 2 samples are very different. You mean this one here from this one here in terms of
here
what?
You see that the results are the opposite from one year, from one reform to the other. And this is very strange. Well, at least on the
not the opposite, right?
in terms of significance.
what we have here is that these two results are negative and significant, okay? And there are, in two outcomes, there are no significant effects, and one is, so there is no clear negative effect of the most recent reform, right? My story here is that there is learning, right? So these were maybe the first generation who stayed 12 weeks with the, obviously a substantial amount of kids, amount of time with the kids, okay? And there may be some learning.
But in 1 year,
Well,
it's hard to think that the parents had some communication to the parents
No,
of
but
the previous
there may be a
reform.
social norm going on, a social norm story going on, right? So it becomes more accepted that fathers should be taking care of the kids, right?
Yeah, but which is a transmission.
Transmission of learning.
There is this paper on peer effects, right? That showing that if your peers take paternity leave, you are more likely to take paternity leave, right?
No, but the point is that, okay, the first did it back, okay, did it wrongly or whatever. This is why we have these negative signs, okay? But are the first aware that they are doing that? So that's the point. To transmit the learning to the other, don't do this, do that.
Well, it may be that here it's just insecurity and here they are more secure, right? They are more confident just because they have a reference or 1 year of experience, right? It's not that there may not be even doing anything wrong, right? It's just insecurity, right? And now, because it's becoming more common going to the doctor and see the room with more men, okay, going to the playground and see fathers around, okay? So
No, but
they are getting more
the interesting
confident.
thing is that, because I don't know if it's only in terms of the presentation, but one interesting point of view is that beyond what is the economic analysis, etc., is what biology says about this. Because when you present this or any other paper, sometimes it's nice to give some insight about, I'm going to analyze this, not and see what happened, so I analyze this, and just to say what I can find and why. So for instance, you have that, now it doesn't, even if you have only one group, okay? I wonder why, because when you have these results that are counterintuitive, then the audience start to make picky questions, like, so what biology says about this, or psychologists, why it can be more than say, well, maybe because parents they are spend together 6 weeks at home together, and then it's the end of the world. And
I'm going to provide you some
Okay.
some mechanisms. For this kind of the effects of the first reform being stronger, I wouldn't say that the effects of the reform are positive, right?
No.
We cannot say. They are negative or not, okay? But I wouldn't say that they are the opposite, right?
No, I put it in terms of signification. What is significant in one is not in the other, and which was not significant in one, it's then at 5% of this. It's significant.
But if you read these results, right? How I interpret this table is that the 2020 had clearly negative effects, okay? While the second reform, either negative or no effects, right? For one outcome is positive at 10%, okay? About your question, Luis, so I read a bit on child development, okay? And most studies are about the mother, because there's no causal evidence about the impact of being with the father, because there's no identification strategy, right? So all the literature on child development is about being with the mother. And there is some recent evidence, right, about how important it is to tell parents what to do with their kids, right? So developing parenting skills. So parenting skills, which is a phenomenon that basically means how you should spend your time with your kid at an early age, right? It's something that seems to be important, right? And we don't know whether there are asymmetric effects, because basically, not even from biology, sociology, or whatsoever, okay, we can have descriptive evidence, but most studies on child development are about spending time with the mother, right? So, and if you have any reference or suggestion, it would be very welcome because, yeah, I don't know whether being with the mother or the father has an asymmetric effect on kids when they are 4 weeks old or 8 weeks old.
You could speculate that it's a matter of time.
Lydia, can I ask you a question?
So hold on, there is a question in the room.
There is a learning process, but within learning process. I mean, having more time spent. So the more time you spend with your kid, your child, the more you learn and the better perform. So this going down the negative effects could, you could argue that the leash should be even longer because then the dad learns how to.
There's a learning curve, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not a social learning curve.
I don't know whether these fathers are the same, right? So
Well,
probably those are
but you're assuming that they are similar
well, that they
because you are
they
only
see each
changing
other.
the weeks that you spend.
Yeah, that they
No?
see each other. Okay, yeah, that they see each other. Yeah, that there is
So the
something.
idea is that it's a less
Yeah.
negative because they're learning, but not the mechanism you are suggesting. This kind of a social learning.
I'm
but
suggesting
it's
the social learning
It's
mechanism.
a learning itself by the dads learning how to take care of the kid,
Yeah. So developing parenting skills. That's the
but not socialism.
not
Not at social level,
not-
but
not
at the individual
level. Okay. So Asier,
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know, I think perhaps some of the points maybe other people have read, because I couldn't really follow the whole of it, but I'm a bit sort of feeling a bit uneasy about selection here, no? Like, who is taking up? And, I mean, it seemed, I seem to understand that the 2021 reform makes it compulsory, so the marginal guy is completely different from the previous reform, if I understood that correctly. Am I right on that?
yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That
Yeah.
the nature. Okay. That these 6 weeks were not compulsory in the previous reform. Let me check. Yeah. 2 weeks could be shared with the mother. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But this thing of the 6. Okay, yeah, I don't know whether, okay, I'll check whether this 6 weeks compulsory, whether there were any, yeah. So to answer your question, I miss information about how many weeks were, or if any weeks were compulsory in the 2020 reform. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and then I was also thinking that perhaps that's where you're heading now. But like, I mean, so you're trying to sell the paper as parental effects. As the contribution coming from father leave. But then we see that empirically, what you find it's actually joint. So then in practice, even though the law says one thing, then the effects of the law are whatever they are, and they are different from what you would like. I mean, if we were interested in understanding the role of the father, I think what you seem to be estimating is the role of being both on leave, right?
Yeah.
Mostly, if I understand correctly,
Yeah. Let me jump to the mechanisms because.
Okay.
Okay, so mechanism. I think this table is nice. Okay, so here we have the effect of the reform on the total length of paternity leave. Okay, so the increase we've seen of these 2-3 weeks for fathers, no effect on mothers. Okay, but both are spending more time together. So as Asier was saying, the time that parents spend together while on parental leave increases. So They are not sequentially taking the leave, but they are simultaneously taking the leave, right? So actually, the total amount of time is the same, right? So either there is more crowding, someone was saying, or they are substituting each other at a early stage, which may not be a good thing for the kid. I don't know, because I have no clue about biology or child development, and I should learn. But there is also hard to identify causal effects because there are not studies or experiments such as the Spanish one, right? So what else do we see? We see that fathers while on leave are, at least during the first reform, more likely to be working when the length goes from 8 to 12 weeks, the probability of fathers declaring to do some work while on leave increases, right? So
what type of work? What type of work?
Did you work any day during the paternity leave? I think it's, while on paternity leave, whether you were doing some work, answering emails, work related, yeah. Like paid work related, okay? And we also find some effects on mothers, right? So this is evidence that sometimes it's being substituted. So mothers also have more time to answer emails, right? Or to be connected with their workplace. And another interesting thing we find for both reforms is that this increase in well-being among mothers, right? So if they have maybe more free time, okay, or they are more relaxed, or they can rest more, life satisfaction increases, which actually is a nice result given the other results we have in the paper, right? So this may be part of the story, right? So mothers may be taking some time off, staying less with the child, and it may be that maternal and parental time are not perfect substitutes early in life, right? So, and here is where I need the reference from biology or child development, okay? I also mentioned formal alternative types of care, okay? And what we see from here is that at least for the third reform, kids are less likely to be on formal childcare in 2022, right? So that's at the time of the survey, no when they were 16 weeks, right? So less likely to be on childcare, more likely to be in informal care, in particular informal care provided by nannies, right? So here also some evidence that formal care, which we know it's beneficial for most kids, in particular those coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, is being replaced by some other type of cares, okay? So...
But it is after the leave is finished.
Yeah, exactly. But this may be that because, yeah.
So what, substitute by what? Mother staying longer?
No. I mean, they find other arrangement. Instead of putting the kid in childcare, okay, they stay with a nanny. I mean, what we find is this increase in the probability of being with a nanny. So we also find no effects on employment status, parent divorce. That's not the mechanism. We don't find effects on family composition, and also no significant effects on other types of time use or changes in other types of time use, okay? So basically, let me conclude that we find no evidence that paternity leave extensions translate into better developmental outcomes for their children. We find evidence that it increases the length of the leave they spend together and decreases the use of formal care, right? And also that the fact that the effect of the last reform are less negative may be pointing towards learning or changes in social norms. And that's the story.
Any other quick questions? Maybe from some of the students here. Do you have a question, Marina? And do you want to make a question?
Well, actually yes.
Quick one.
Because the study was from ages between 0 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
I was wondering if because they start to study at 3 years old. It was very important to study instead of taking into account from between 0 to 5 years to 0 to 3. Because they start to study at 3-year-old, and they already have someone, I think, in care of them. Not the parents, but the...
Yeah, but the kids, so these kids, we are only, I mean, because of the first stage, we are only studying kids below 2, the age of 2, right? So the older kids, we don't really have a first stage to analyze what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much again, Lydia.
Thank you.